I wanted to talk about another one of my favorite creatures to run, and another one that I think is overlooked is the Hobgoblin. And a lot of people just look at the Hobgoblin as they're just the beefier version of goblins to put at the end of early dungeons, and then they forget about them. But these things can really put a mid to late level party to task if you know how to use them. And that's kind of what I want to show with this video. So let's take a look at the stat blocks. First, there are the 1/2 CR Hobgoblins, the basic fare, and yes, usually these are the ones that are put at the end of dungeons for those early level parties, but even then, you see some of the things starting that make them dangerous. They're high AC for one. A low level party hitting an AC 18 creature is very difficult to do. And the other thing they have is their ability, or in this one's case is martial advantage. It allows you to add 2d6 damage as long as an ally is nearby. Kind of like a pack tactics, but instead of increasing odds of hitting, it increases damage when hit. So imagine a level 2 or level 3 party member getting hit with a d10 +1 sword, and on top of that 2d6 damage. You roll high enough, at max damage, you're rolling 23 damage. That could kill almost most characters at that level, so they are still very dangerous. At CR2 are the Hobgoblin Iron Shadows. Now, these things are basically ninjas. Now, these things have some spell casting abilities, but they're not really used for combat. But where they shine is in combat, and that is because they can make 4 attacks and replace one of them with their Shadow Jaunt. Basically a Misty Step. And as long as it's dark out or in dim light, so the way I would usually use these things against the party is in a forest area, say, where the canopy provides the dim light. It doesn't affect the party, but it allows them to jump into these shadows, and they can go up into a tree, attack 3 times, and then poof to another tree. And it becomes very frustrating for a party to keep up with it, but it mixes up combat quite a bit. So they do make for a memorable encounter, and they're easy enough to scale up past level 2 if you want to give them a little bit of a hit. Add an extra d4 for their damage. Add another 10, 20 hit points, depending on the party and how many of these you throw at them. Just be careful, it is still dealing 4 attacks, which could build up, especially if they all gang up on the squishy caster in the back who got left alone for some reason. The next Hobgoblin in order of CR is the CR3 Hobgoblin Captain. Oddly, these things are a little bit easier to hit at AC 17, but they do have an ability of leadership, which they can use once, basically at the start of the fight. It's basically like a small bless spell where an ally of the captain can add a d4 to an attack roll or saving throw. These things also deal more damage in the sense that they're using a greatsword. They have 2 attacks that they can make, and they get 3d6 for their martial advantage ability. After that, we have the CR4 Hobgoblin Devastator. Now, these things are very, very strong. They're a 7th level spellcaster, and the spells they have are very damaging. They have Fireball, they have Lightning Bolt, they can cast Fly, which, you could come in and have them flying over the battlefield and start the combat with some fireballs or ice storm or just anything really to try to soften up a party, and then send in the ground troops. And similar to the more melee-centric Hobgoblins, with their martial advantage, these have arcane advantage, which again can deal an extra 2d6 to a creature that it hits with a spell, as long as it's nearby a hobgoblin. But you may be wondering, well, if it's near a friend, I mean, you're going to have to aim that fireball carefully. Well, that's the beauty of these things. They don't. And because of their army arcana, when they cast a spell that forces a creature to make a saving throw, it can just cause its allies to be immune to the damage instead, and that is very strong. So I like to think of these more as a second or third round cavalry. You have all the martial classes come in and start fighting the party one-on-one, and then all of a sudden, that's when they rise up over the battlefield, slam the entire fight with fireballs, their allies are safe, and it's the party that gets crushed as they are surrounded, and therefore giving the arcane advantage to the Devastator or Devastators. And again, if you wanted to upscale these still to have them fight even stronger parties, basically up the DC is the easiest way to do that. Just, don't make it too high, or you can have a TPK on hands. And then finally, at CR6, the Hobgoblin Warlord. This is the ultimate martial Hobgoblin. 20 AC, 97 hit points. Their martial advantage is 46. They have a shield bash that can knock enemies prone. They also have the leadership ability, and on top of that, they also have a parry for a reaction, meaning that at least for the first melee hit against it, it could essentially have a 23 AC. These things are hard to hit, and hit very hard back. And again, if you wanted to upscale these for higher level parties, really I think where you look at is the plus to damage in the swords. They can make 3 melee attacks with their long sword. So you basically have a 1d8 plus 3. That's not going to hurt a party, high level party, too bad. You can make it a plus 5, plus 7. Whatever you feel right. Again, be careful to avoid TPKs. But these are still creatures that shouldn't just be overlooked because they have goblin in the name. They can be a very, very tough fight for any party with a little tweaks here and there. And I mean, again, as I've said, those Iron Shadows, when I reclass them as ninjas, my party hates me. And I'm okay with that because it is really fun to run the combat encounter because it's very different, and well, it's a memorable fight either way. I haven't killed any of them yet, which is a good thing. So, they can get over it. But let me know if you knew that Hobgoblins could be that strong, or maybe you've been TPK'd by Hobgoblins, or if maybe you'll start thinking about using them in your own campaigns, because now that maybe this has opened your eyes to their ability as a functional army unit to send at a party. But alright, let me know.